Hello, it's Epileptic, and I decided to do my hair for this video. I'm gonna start this with another vocabulary, and that's going to be epilepsy. I don't actually think I've ever actually covered what that is, but it's just the reoccurrence of epileptic seizures, which is when the electrical activity in your brain just goes on its own, and it's just like, screw this, and it dances around and stuff, and depending on where in the brain it is, it kind of tells you what kind of seizure you're having, and that's that. I'm actually making this video on dating and epilepsy because I did one on just regular relationships, whether it be friends or more, or family. I did one on finding your support person, but I haven't done one on actually dating. So that's what I'm going to do. Excuse me because my memory is horrendous because of seizures. So I have this beautiful list that I'm going to be looking at. And so to start, the first thing you need to know with dating someone who is epileptic is you have to understand epilepsy. You have to understand that there are many different kinds of seizures, and they can all have completely different side effects on a person, and depending on whether they're seizure free or not, it can be a lot more difficult to deal with them. And a lot of people don't realize how stressful it can be. Like, it's even hard for my family, and they've been dealing with this for years. I mean, it's hard for me to go through this. So coming into someone's life and choosing to be their partner, it's going to be very stressful because a lot of that is going to be put on you. And the next thing I have is you have to be not only dating your partner as a partner, but you're dating their epilepsy too. It's not just you're there when they're normal and you walk out when they're having seizures. That's not really what you should do, because stress is a big trigger for a lot of people. And also, trust is something you really need in someone when you're epileptic, and if you can't handle that, they're not going to want to be with you because it's going to cause them too much stress. And you have to understand that you need to respect the person that they are, but you also need to respect the person that they are when they're having seizures and when they're having any kind of side effect from these seizures. And you need to establish the relationship that you have with this person, whether it be romantic or just sexual. And you need to establish the boundaries of that, because a lot of the time people have a hard time understanding that. I definitely do. I have to have things broken down to me and said to me very specifically, otherwise I will not know what to do, and it's very hard. And with dating an epileptic, they may feel lost or distant, and sometimes they can act out either right before, during, or after a seizure. You need to know how to deal with that, because you may think that they are being rude or that they are trying to cause issues, but in actuality, their brain is literally doing what it's not supposed to, and they can't help that, and they may do certain things, and you need to understand that. And that can be very stressful for a person, you know. Like my best friend, it was very stressful for him to handle that kind of stuff with me. And you need to like understand what a person goes through before a seizure, during, and after, so you don't think that there are issues when there's not. And with that, like on top of that, is setting rules. A person that you're dating may be very codependent or clingy, and you need to know that and understand that and know if you're willing to deal with that. Codependence is very common in epilepsy, and it's not a healthy thing for any kind of person, but with someone with a chronic illness like that, you know, it's very hard to deal with things on your own, and they will try to find someone to cling to. And you need to also set the rules on what you can handle with their epilepsy, because it's nicer for you to just straight up say, like, I don't know if I can deal with this right now, this early in the relationship. It's nicer for you to just say that than for you not to say anything and then get mad when you can't handle it anymore or walk out. Because that's a common issue, is people won't be able to handle it and they'll just leave. And it's not fair to the person that you're trying to help. And then finally, a rule you need to set is how you're going to deal with that person's seizures. You know, everyone has different seizures, everyone has different kinds of seizures. Depending on where in your brain they are and how powerful they are, it can be very difficult. I've read stories about people that when they had seizures, they just started screaming. Or people who will have, you know, grand mal tonic-clonic seizures, and they'll drop to the ground, and you have to know how to deal with that. A very, very big thing that I have on here is communication. People in general need to be able to communicate, and if someone has any kind of illness, you need to make sure you know how to talk about it and how to tell them when there's an issue, and they need to tell you when there's an issue, because if that's not there, it's just going to be a million times harder, just in any relationship. Another thing is safety is key. You need to know what a person's triggers are for their epilepsy. Like mine is lack of sleep, you know, when I get overly stressed. So you need to know what their triggers are, how to stay away from those triggers, and also like even conversations or topics to stay away from. Because some people go through trauma, and a lot of people lose their memory, and I, for one, remember very traumatic instances in my past, but I don't remember anything else. And if something sparks that, it will make it very hard on me, and it could cause me to have a seizure. And you want to know that when you're talking to someone. You want to know what to stay away from, how to make them feel safe. Another thing, like I said, is everyone has different kinds of seizures, and you want to recognize what happens to the person you're dating when they're having a seizure. And you need to know the symptoms before they have one, and what to do with those symptoms, how to calm them down, how to make them feel safe. Because epilepsy is just this overwhelming fear constantly. Either fear of having a seizure, even if you're 20 years seizure free, you still know that at any moment you could have one. And that's so fearful on anyone's mind. And then when you actually do have seizures, everyone that I've talked to just says how there's this overwhelming sense of fear that surrounds you. And you want to make sure that you're making your person feel safe and not even more unsafe. And if you can't handle that, you want to at least know who or what can make them feel safe. The next thing I kind of covered that is how to help with their seizures. You know, what can you do? Can you get them a glass of water? Can you lay them down? Anything that will help calm them down to possibly stop a seizure. Or like with me, I just had VNS put in. So, you know, maybe if they have magnets to set off, you know, where those are, how you can get to those, how to help with that. Another thing is respecting boundaries of an epileptic, you know, reverse of what I said before, because when a person is freaking out, like I said, there's that overwhelming sense of fear, and if they don't trust you all the way yet, that can just make it way worse and cause them to have a seizure. You want to make sure you're respectful of their boundaries so you can gain that trust from them, because it is very hard to get someone's trust. And then, like I said, you have to know their triggers, and you have to respect that you can't push those buttons if they're not ready to talk about it. Another big thing is don't share personal information. Sometimes a person will tell you something, you know, just because they're having any kind of epileptic episode, and you don't want to go and spread that to other people. But also, don't go telling everyone that, oh, so-and-so has epilepsy. You know, let them tell people. Anything about their medical health, you know, you should leave them to tell that kind of thing. You know, don't go telling people until they're ready to tell people and you have their permission. The next thing I have is understanding the side effects of epilepsy. Even if a person isn't having a seizure, there are constantly side effects from medication and the damage it does to your brain, like poor memory. You know, like I said, even with the poor memory, the trauma still stays sometimes, and you have to understand that. Sometimes people will randomly freak out or break down crying, and you have to know, like, this is a part of their life, and you just have to know how to comfort them. It's very hard, at least for me, to process things. You know, you might have to say something slowly or wait for me to process it to actually get a response. Yesterday was my birthday, and my family had gotten me a card, but I had gone on my phone, and they wanted me to read the card first, but I had my phone in my hand, and they were like, read the card first, but they were being loud, so it took even harder for me to process, or even longer for me to process, and they just kept saying it, read the card first, and they were getting loud and clapping their hands, because every time they said it, it just started over in my brain what they were saying, and I couldn't process it, and it actually caused me to have a seizure because it was so overwhelming and they just kept saying it. And you have to realize sometimes you have to give someone time. And like I said before, boundaries. You have to really establish those, because at least with me, I'm very bad at knowing where to set them. And if you have issues with dealing with my epilepsy, it's a lot nicer to just be like, listen, I can't deal with this, than to freak out over it when I take it too far. And if you just straight up tell me, like, listen, I can't deal with this right now, it's so much easier, because I'm like, okay, I need to go to someone else, or I need to just deal with this myself. And people will respect you for that, and that's not an issue. Another thing with that I said is try not to get angry at a person for what happens. Like how my family just kept saying it over and over again because I wasn't listening. People get angry over stuff like that because they think you're not paying attention, especially with things like absence seizures or partial complex seizures, where you zone and you stay conscious, but you can't do anything while you're having the seizure, and people will get angry and think you're not listening. Or when someone has a memory lapse and you get mad because they don't remember. You know, you have to remember that we have our own things going on inside our head that a lot of other people don't understand. And it's like, my best friend was really good with it. I'd tell him the same story 3 times, and every time he'd just act just as excited, even though he had heard it before. And, you know, it's stuff like that. You just have to be supportive, and you can't get angry over things. And flowing into that is sometimes before a seizure or after one, if it screws with your brain enough, a person can act completely different. They can act out. I get really, really angry, I think, right before I have them, and afterwards, if they're, you know, bad enough, where everything just pisses me off. I don't know why, and I can't control it. Like, small things that wouldn't bother a normal person really, really bother me. And, you know, that's not who I am as a person. I'm not my epilepsy, but my epilepsy does control aspects of my life. And you have to keep in mind that if a person is acting differently than normal, maybe it is their epilepsy, and you should talk to them about that. You know, explain to them, like, this is what you're doing, and it might help spark something, because slowly I did get better with that. It takes time. And like I said, you're filled with fear when this happens, so that just goes to the, like, be patient with someone, be calm with someone, because they may only feel that fear, and if you're getting angry, you're just gonna make it worse. And finally, what I have here is, if you're just getting into a relationship with someone, you have to realize that there's probably already someone in their life that they trust with their epilepsy, and sometimes it's family, but sometimes it's not. And if it's a person that's not family, you have to realize that that person may go to them for a while until they build that trust with you, but you can't let it turn into jealousy or get angry about it, because they can't help it. If you feel drawn to someone because they make you feel safe, you know, that's perfectly okay. You just have to keep in mind, like I said, those boundaries. As long as you set those boundaries, you should just have faith in the person. And, you know, the biggest thing is not getting angry about a person because of their epilepsy. That's where I'm gonna finish that off. I have another epilepsy shirt on that says, "I choose to battle, not suffer." And then it's epilepsy awareness, and it's a little brain with a ribbon on it. A big thing that I wanted to say, well, first of all, thank you for watching this far. Sorry about all the noise, I'm on my bed. A big thing I want to say is, like, I have like 14 subscribers, but I get a lot of views for someone who has no idea what they're doing. But, like, definitely comment what you want me to talk about, and I will 100% talk about it. I have no issues. This, like, really gets my mind off of things because I feel like I'm actually telling people what's going on. And it does help. So, yeah, if you want to hear anything at all about me or just about epilepsy, any kind of education, just comment it, or, like, I don't know if you can message on YouTube, but do that, and I will gladly do it. So this has been Epileptalk, and I'm signing out.